Hey everybody, this is Old Nan, and these are the girls, the Golden Girls of Westeros. We have tonight, Lady Steffi's going to be doing Clash of Kings, focusing on Bran. We have Lady Ashley, Lady Marie. Y'all, let them know who you are. First, Girls of Westeros. So we have tonight, Lady Steffi's going to be doing. Somebody's not focusing on
Unmuted.
Bran.
Ladies,
I'm not.
how are you, everyone? I think we're echoing,
I got
are
it.
we?
I got it.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So good to be here and see all of you in the chat. And looking forward to talking about Clash of Kings.
Hey everyone, it's good to see you all. Glad to see you here. And remember, I've got a wrench and I know how to use it. Hashtag blame Milt. So let's get started, lady Steffi.
Hey everyone in the chat, Steffi. I can't wait to talk about Bran: A Clash of Kings. So I guess we're gonna get started, eh? Yes.
Take it away, Steffi.
Okay, so in A Clash of Kings, we go through like numerous adventures, I would say. We have the Red Comet, Robb becoming king and Bran becoming heir. We got Mira and Jojen Reed, Big and Little Walder. We got Bran's dreams, Jojen's green dreams. We got Theon capturing Winterfell, Ramsay's burning Winterfell, the killing of the two Miller boys, the Crypts of Winterfell and the hideout. And then we got Maester Luwin and the conversations he has with Brandon Rickon and everyone else. And then them splitting up. So I guess we'll start at the Red Comet. Lots of people view this differently. We first come across it when in Bran's chapter when Maester Luwin is looking through the mirror's lens, and it has it's a red comet with a long tail that to some appears to cover half the sky. It is visible by day and outshines the moon by night. Some refer to it as the color of blood red. Now, in Dany: A Clash of Kings, she thinks of this as Drogo's, like a sign to wake dragons and all this stuff. And the bleeding star in Dothraki is Shiraki. And what I found was like a little bit interesting about that was Kios is actually Arabic for the Islamic religion, and basically referring to for if you have any daily problems in the Hadith, like such as having a prayer throughout the day and you don't know how to go about it, then to refer to the Quran. So it's a previous and like it's basically a process of finding which law to follow, which I found really interesting. The Undying says it was for Dany to get her to get them to Karth. Melisandre says it's dragon's breath. She also says it's a herald for Stannis and Lightbringer. Edmure believes it's the Tully's fish and Longtail. I could go on. I don't know if you guys want me to go on.
Yeah, go on.
Go on? Okay, so Master Creelson believes that it's blood and murder. Varys tells Tyrion that it's a warning for war. The priests and preachers and prophets foretell of doom and destruction with the comment. The Begging Brothers refer to it as the Father's Scourge and the Harbinger for Ned being executed on the steps of Baelor. Great John Umber thinks of it as vengeance for the Starks. Gendry names it the Red Sword, which kind of ties back into Melisandre and her whole thing with Azor Ahai and Lightbringer. What else? Arya imagines the blood on ice after Ned's execution, and that's how she pictures it. Septim Shea at Winterfell thinks the sword represents the slaying of the seasons, and shortly after the White Raven comes. So basically the signaling of like the change of seasons. Lewin thinks it's just like the same representation. It's just like the changing of the seasons, and that's why the dire wolves are howling at it. Asha thinks it means blood and fire. Olnan says she can smell it despite being blind, and she believes it's like a foretelling of dragons. The Night's Watch name it Mormont's torch for them going for their journey to the Fist of the First Men, and the biggest ranging outside of the wall. And Aaron Harris says it's a symbol for the drowned god and for war, which kind of makes sense as well with red skies at night, sailor's delight, but red skies in morning, sailor's warning. So yeah, that's about it for the red comment if you guys want to jump on that.
It was something different for every one of them. And in a way, it came true. Like Arya saw it as her father's sword eyes. And, and as a being red with the blood of her father. But also Gendry saw it as a sword being forged. And to me, that is foreshadowing that the sword would be reforged. Interesting. Ladies?
Well, to me, what speaks loudly to me is it's always old Nan. To me, she's never been wrong. She's not known as a prophet, but everything her stories and everything she says, she's never been wrong. And she says dragons, and that's backed up by Osha saying fire and blood, which is the Targaryen words. So I'm tend towards it's the birth of the dragons that it means. That's where I lean towards.
Yeah, it's everybody's comment. It's so funny to listen to everybody talk about it. It's one of my favorite passages with Crescent at Dragonstone, with the it's him between a wyvern and a dragon. So it's a gray leviathan between a standing between a dragon and a wyvern. That stuck out to me, and I love that passage of him standing there just kind of thinking about how sad everything's gotten at House Baratheon. But that's, I guess, I mean, the one thing that sticks out to me is like you said, old Nan saying it smells like dragons, and Osha saying and fire dragons boy, and that sticks out to me like crazy, because it seems like when it comes to magic, it's blood, and it has something to do with the colors. It has something to do, and it seems like the wildlings know a little more. So everybody else thinks it's their comet, and the wildlings think it's blood and fire and dragons. So I tend to go with the wildlings and what they think.
If I may, I think it comes back to them being the same thing, like you said with Crescent. He saw it as a murder, and right after that, he chose murder. He tried to murder Melisandre right after that. So it was foretelling murder for him. And then you've got, what was the other one, Steffi? In the Riverland.
Oh, Edmure believes it's the fish in the long tail of their sigil, but then Kat reflects that, like, they don't correlate in color, and nor is the river that their fish is jumping out of red, so it doesn't make sense to her at all.
But she says it's Lannister. She thinks it's Lannister colors, and it was for her as well. The Lannisters and the Freys and the Boltons are basically what killed her, and the Karstarks.
Catelyn, it really was Lannisters coming for her.
Yeah, so in each instant, it kind of goes with it actually does come true, self-fulfilling prophecies, maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
I think you hit on something there. Yeah, I think that's part of it, is that when you look at something and say that's mine, it means this or that, that thing's really believe in it. So especially when there's magic afoot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Steffi left out that it was Joff's comet.
Oh yeah.
Because we don't care about Joffrey, but it's his comet too. Little piece of crap. But you know, really, it did seem to mark back in dragons being born. I mean, that was really what I don't know. You know, so interesting that a comet goes by and born. It's mostly to do with magic, you know, to look at the comet that way, because a comet actually did go in through that part of the world in the Middle Ages, I think, and a lot of people were really scared about because of it. Foretold the end of the world. So maybe
it was doom, and just about most of the thoughts on the comet foretold doom in just about every scenario, though, didn't it? Just about.
oh yeah, it
Something
did.
or someone. Not a very
Yeah,
good
yeah, it was.
sign.
Yeah, it was a bad omen for most. I mean, really, for everyone but Daenerys. It wasn't all good. It was her colors and her dragons were born, but she lost Khal Drogo too. So,
and also Osha warns Bran that it's fire and blood, or blood and fire, or something like that. And then she says, and not good, not a good thing.
nothing
Something like
good.
that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Nothing
Blood and fire,
good.
boy. Dragons, boy, and nothing good.
Nothing.
Okay, I'll jump in for a second if I can. When it comes to Melisandre and viewing it as like a sign for R'hllor and Azor Ahai and Lightbringer, I just want to read a few things, if you don't mind. Okay, this is the Clash of King Davos 1. This is Melisandre speaking. In ancient books of Ashai, it is written that there will come a day after a long summer when the star bleeds and the cold breath of darkness falls heavy on this world. In the dread hour, a warrior shall draw from the fire a burning sword, and that sword shall be Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes. And he who clasps it shall be Azor Ahai come again, and the darkness shall flee before him. Azor Ahai, beloved of R'hllor, the warrior of light, the son of fire, come forth, your sword awaits you. Come forth and take it into your hand. Now, this is during the ceremony when Stannis is like, they're basically burning all the 7 deities, right, of the faith, and then he takes the sword out and like whatever, right? Crescent kind of was like, you see him like walk away at this time too, and when it comes to that, I think about what Maester Aemon said. And I'm going to quote it as well. It said, Rhaegar, I thought, the smoke was from the fire that devoured Summerhall on the day of his birth, the salt from the tears shed for those who died. He shared my beliefs when he was young, but later he became persuaded that it was his own son who fulfilled the prophecy, for a comet had been seen above King's Landing on the night Aegon was conceived, and Rhaegar was certain the bleeding star had to be a comet. What fools were we, right? And then he goes on to mention that it was Dany and whatever. But if Rhaegar thought enough that it was something to do with the birth of something, then obviously would point to the dragons being Azor Ahai or someone being Azor Ahai. So it doesn't make sense when you boil it down that Rhaegar would associate this comet with the Azor Ahai or the Prince That Was Promised figure, but he, as soon as he saw the comet, like, wouldn't that imply that the comet had to be at Summerhall during the time, like, of his birth? Like, wouldn't someone have to tell him that this comet was there for him to believe that he was Azor Ahai? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, wasn't there a comet when Aegon was born, his son?
Yeah, when he was conceived.
Yeah, I thought so.
So I just don't understand how he could view this comet with the Azor Ahai and the Prince That Was Promised the same way Melisandre does. It seems a little bit sketchy, right? Like, the comet means one thing to one people, right? To R'hllor, and then the comet means completely something else to them. It's just
Sorry to interrupt. Were you finished? It does. It seems like when we've got blood and fire and there's a red comet going through the sky, that right at the same time, all these things are happening, but one of the things that's happening is they're burning the 7 on Dragonstone, right? So stuck out like, whoa, idols, anything, even if you don't believe in the faith of the 7, or in the faith, it's really to burn idols and to take them from where they stand. And those things that I love about these books, that George always talks about ruins and how much he loves ruins. And so when he writes about them, you know that they're important. And when these statues were burning, it was really, really quite amazing how they burned, I've been talking about how John's always flexing his sword hand, how Jamie's missing a hand, how Victorian's arm is on fire. Those are our warriors. And the warrior, I noticed, when they're burning, the warrior's hand starts really burning and sort of burns really bright and then falls off. There almost sounded like she was screaming. It was really sad. Like, something to do with Ned's death, because the fact that he said Baelor really gets me mythology wise. Being Baelor was of the Fomorians, who sort of were like the first men crossed with the Malaysians, but they're a little bit more like the Ironborn, first people to come to Ireland, but they were a seafaring, warring people. And so one of their main gods was called Balor of the Evil Eye, and he became Baelor after a while. So that always makes me think that maybe Ned saying that word, Baelor, even though he was saying it to Yoren for Arya, maybe he was saying it for another reason too, to awaken the magic. I thought it was interesting all that happened at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. Awakening the magic. Maybe you're saying that Ned may have awakened when he called Baelor. Is that what you're saying, Ashley?
There was a mythological figure and his name was Baelor of the Evil Eye, they called him. Had an eye in his third eye, and they say he had one in his back also. So when he was killed, he would bring chaos wherever he went. He was the agent of chaos. So when he would turn his eye, he would just kill everyone. So maybe and he also affected the earth and the way that and things like that. So it ushered in different seasons also, just like you were saying earlier, Steph. So something has to do here with winter coming and magic coming back. With maybe it was the word Baelor, because each Stark says a word when they die, and I always kept it has to mean more than just that's where Arya is on Baelor's statue. So go get her, so she doesn't see me be beheaded. So I don't know. Just an interesting.
I don't know either, Ashley, but Ned was not a believer in the seven. He believed in the old gods. And I found also very interesting that a statement that Master Lewin said to Bran, he told him even gods die. So that's in reference to what you're talking about, all the gods being burned on the beach and everything. Is that correct?
Yeah. Ragnarok is the twilight of the gods, where the gods do die. So that's why I keep saying I think that these characters are playing out god figures like that, more like demigods or, smaller deities that are from Celtic mythology, from Norse mythology, from Greek mythology, but they all end up playing out part, So I think maybe Ned plays out a little bit of the Fisher King from the Arthurian legends, and I think that he plays out some sort of maybe like a ruler from that had both forest blood and first man blood, so Fomorian blood and Tuatha De Danann blood. As does Bloodraven, as does Jon, as does Bran.
Okay, I'll jump in for a second. While you were talking about like the physicality of the actual warrior burning, I thought of when Tyrion is on the boat with Makaro. There is like a statue at the front, the front of the boat, and when the storm is finished, right, and Makaro sends down these green flames for some reason. I don't know why they're green, right? You think they would be red for R'hllor. At the end of the storm, and Tyrion like wakes up, the maiden on the ship's on the boat, her arm was carrying a book, and the arm was gone after the storm. So that could signify this as well to an extent, where you're not supposed to put all this faith in just the sword or the warrior, but it's also being educated enough to use the sword. It's kind of like what Maester Luwin says about using spells, are like using like a double-edged sword or something along those lines. It might have been someone else that said that. But yeah, I get where you were going with that.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. It's something about it, like it's like prophecy, like using magic can be a double-edged sword too. So the fact that like Ned built a sept for Catelyn in Winterfell, that's kind of odd to me, to build a sept of the faith, sacred ground as Winterfell. But I guess it goes with the times. It's nice that they change and everyone, and they don't leave anyone out, even though they believe in the old gods. I think it's kind of cool that Ned did that, but I wonder if it offended someone, to build a sept and to have any faith going on in Winterfell. I don't know, but arm thing is really interesting to me, because Jaime's missing a hand. There was also a king of the Tuatha De Danann, who are the children of the forest equals in Irish mythology, who had a king who had a missing hand, and he got his hand lopped off in a war against are sort of like the first men. And so he could no longer be their king because he wasn't perfect anymore. And so they made a silver hand for him. And when he got his hand put on, he was their king. He was able to be their king again. How that ties in, but it's really interesting that all of our warriors are losing their hands and also flexing their sword hands. Davos, John, with his ghost, still flexes it. So that just, there's something to that.
So you're kind of viewing.
That,
Hold on, I'm just gonna ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you're viewing the comment also as like a figurative arm, that it's not just like a sword or anything else, or like a bad omen. You're viewing it as like the hand that wields the sword, if I'm correct, right?
Exactly. Thanks for putting that in. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like Lightbringer, you know, the man who holds the sword. All these guys will be our ultimate. Maybe.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah.
Well, I studied methodically, chapter by chapter. So what stuck out to me from the beginning is what I've written here is of late, he often dreamed of wolves. They are talking to me, brother to brother. He could almost understand them, but not quite, but almost, as if they were singing in a language he had once known and somehow forgotten. The Starks had wolf blood, old Nan had told him, though it is stronger in some than in others, she had warned him. Summer howls here, long and sad, full of grief and longing. Shaggy Dog was more savage. And I've put in brackets here, old Nan warns Bran about wolf blood. Why? Why did she warn him about that? And also Bran kind of remembers a language he had forgotten when listening to his wolves. And I thought, maybe I'm wrong here, but didn't Bran the Builder learn the language of the children's song so he could communicate with the children of the forest? That kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah, he did. In order to make the pact, someone had to translate, right? So you're right.
So I'm just wondering if Bran Stark and Bran the Builder, there's a connection because he somehow is kind of remembering a language that he had once forgotten. Could there be a connection?
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
It's possible. I think that we're going to have a new age of awakening of the heroes. There's a lot of it that the new age is maybe the comet is signaling the new age of heroes. That's what I want to say.
It is. I mean, it's heralding a whole time of change and probably, you know, changing Westeros as they've known it for a long time. Years. I don't know if this part came from a Clash of Kings. I can't remember, but I wanted to bring it up because I found it really amazing that Bran are talking about Bran's dreams. This might be from Game of Thrones, but they're talking about Bran's dream falling, and Jojen asks him what scares him. The falling is the falling that scares you, and Bran says the falling, and to himself he says the falling in the Golden Man, the Queen's brother. He scares me too, but mostly the falling. He didn't say it though. How could he? He hadn't been able to talk about it, tell Sir Roderick or Maester Luwin, and he could not tell the Reeds either. If he didn't talk about it, maybe he would forget. He never wanted to remember. It might not even be a true remembering. So it shocked me that I had missed that Bran actually did know who didn't tell. So did he just choose to think it wasn't a true remembering? or did he actually the whole time know that it was Jamie the whole time?
Can I jump in on that one? It was Bloodraven
Please.
told him to put it aside, that you don't need it right now. I mean, there's a time when he will remember it, I do believe.
Right.
He's going to have to face Jamie, like I said before. But at this point, I think that it's just tucked back in the back of his mind to be brought out at a certain time later in the book or in the story.
For me,
Yeah,
when
I just thought.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
you can go.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
had that written down too, but I kind of viewed it more of a traumatic experience. It's kind of like when people go through excruciating amounts of pain or in high intensities of adrenaline due to survival, that they blank out. It's so your body doesn't shut down from like trauma. It's kind of like when you're in a war zone and you're having these guns go off. It's PTSD basically, and that's how I view him going through. Like it wasn't that like Brynden Rivers was telling him to forget. Bran naturally forgot. That's the way I choose to believe it, because it was like, imagine being pushed out of a flipping tower. Like it's not something you would like to remember. So maybe he'll remember like the glimpse of being pushed, but the actual falling, I don't think he'll remember. It's kind of like when you're in a dream, you don't remember your death, or like most of your falling, but you remember that instant when it happens, right?
I think Bran remembers a golden figure throwing him from the window. I think I read that somewhere in Clash of Kings. The golden figure, can't see the face, but he can remember a golden figure, and that kind of fits in with the vision he had in a Game of Thrones, like the golden figure, the man in with the bloody, like the thick black blood face kind of thing.
I've got the quote right here. It says, I felt you fall. Is that what scares you, the falling? And Bran doesn't say this, he thinks it. The falling and the golden man, the queen's brother, he scares me too. But mostly the falling. He did not say it, though. How could he? He had not been able to tell Sir Roderick or Maester Lewin, and he couldn't tell the Reeds either. If he didn't talk about it, maybe he would forget. He had never wanted to remember. It might not even be a true remembering. Summer, and since Bran gets kind of upset about it, Bran and Shaggy Dog attack or try to attack Jojen and Mira. Bran's upset. Mira keeps saying, and Jojen keeps saying, is saying Jojen's making Summer angry, and Jojen's going, no, it's you that's making him angry. Angry. So they had to climb up the tree to get away from the dire wolves. And I thought it was a little symbolic that Mira was stabbed trident spear that she holds.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on that. Sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
Are you sure? Okay. When I was looking at that scene, when Bran and Mira, or Jojen and Mira, first go to Winterfell and stuff like that, outside of the oath, when that event takes place, it's almost like they're trying to figure out who the winged wolf is, not knowing who the winged wolf is, which, right? They're like, oh, this one's really furious and evil and mad. And then they're like, oh, this one's so nice. Look how calm he is, right? Right? Like, it doesn't make sense. They're like, oh, it must be this one over this one. Like, it's, if you're going to choose someone for such an important role, you think you'd know, right?
Yeah.
And that brings back to when we discussed the winged wolf and like how it could have been Sansa, it could have been Robb, it could have been anyone that would have been there at that time, like if they were there. Like if Robb decided not to go and create a war, then it could have been him. Or if Jon decided to stay at Winterfell and Cat allowed him, then it could have been Jon. So
Yeah,
it's just weird how they acted, like almost like they were picking the more easier one to manipulate almost.
totally agree. It is odd because also there's a part where Jon's going to the Fist of the First Men. There's a point where he's passing a weirwood tree and it flashes green and his hand tingles. And in this same scene where Summer's attacking, Bran says, "Summer, to me," and he slaps his hand, up an open palm down on the meat of his thigh. His hand tingled, but his dead leg felt nothing. So I wonder if those two things were happening at the same time, or if it was Bran in the tree trying to help Jon. That's a whole other conversation. But I just found it really interesting that Bran's hand tingled there too. So
Is
there's
that where the
something going
tree
on.
had Bran? I'm sorry, hon. Is that where the tree
No, go
had
ahead.
Bran's face? Is that
Mhm.
where the tree had Bran's face?
Oh. No, that was the one that was it was a weirwood encased in ice, that when Ghost found the cache of obsidian and the grave of in the Fist of the First Men.
Okay.
The timelines are really weird, but we do get confirmation that when Jojen and Mira come to Winterfell and they start trying to like push Bran to open his third eye, that he does actually talk to Jon. That's the conversation he has after he's with like when he's like basically on the voyage to the Frostfangs, trying to get to Manson to see what they're up to. So it was interesting to get that definite like time gap, like to see how like basically Jon for me is way ahead of the story compared to where Bran is. Like Bran in A Dance with Dragons must be like almost like 6 months back compared to the rest of the people, like in the books, it seems like, just from that.
Yeah, true. Is actually telling himself right at that time to stop playing the boy, because he's going, what am I doing chasing ghosts down this hill? I could kill myself doing this. And he's saying, oh, stop playing the boy, stop being scared of the dark and stuff like that. And Bran's still going, I don't want to go, I don't want to do, no, I'm not the three-eyed raven. So yeah, Bran's not really quite, I mean, what a put on a little boy's shoulders,
It is a
Little
big
boy.
weight. He had a lot of changes. Not only did he go from being able to run and play, and it's almost like he was born to be who he was, because it said that he knows every inch of Winterfell. Every inch he knows. And I think I just lost where I was going with that.
That Bran knows
said he had
every
been,
inch.
and BR had been watching him and waiting for him, perhaps.
Yeah. Because he was it's almost like he was placed there at the appropriate time to be there, that person. But he went through all these changes. He went to cripple, and then he was a lord, and then he was a prince. So he has had to go through a lot of changes, and he ran that whole place in Rob's absence. And he was what, 9-10 years old at the time?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of responsibility on anybody, much less a small child. Yes, he had Maester Lewin and Sir Roderick, but like you said, Sir Roderick kind of dropped the ball in with Ramsay and all that kind of deal. And you got the the thing he did, with getting. I know this was Maester Lewin and them, but getting the ships built, the Manderleys and the Umbers or the Glovers to work together. I found that very interesting, the way they worked it out, and all of these decisions and all, even though it's coming from Maester Lewin, it's got to be run by Bran first. He's got to approve it in the end. So that's a lot on the child.
Yeah, only and when you
and then,
sorry, Ashley.
go for it, Steph.
You can go.
It's okay. Go for it.
Okay. Actually, only when you were bringing that up, all I kept thinking about is how the legends of Bran the Builder go, about how he actually didn't have a partake in building the wall, like quotations. He actually told someone else to do it. So it's kind of like that mimicking of Bran in this situation, in this book, where he's not actually doing the actions himself. He's actually telling someone else to do them. So I agree with you.
Yeah,
That's
in
really
that
true.
aspect, he could be Bran the Builder. He could conceivably be Bran the Builder in some aspects of this world that they're in, with the werewood net and everything. He could actually go back, like you said, and tell somebody how to build the wall or something like that.
I find it odd too that Bran the Builder and Bran the Burner are brought up in A Clash of Kings. Three Brandons in the same book.
Yeah, the bastard and the
So I just wondered if there was a connection there too. And also, I found this stuck out to me too. Like he says, who are they mourning now? This is when all the wolves are howling. Had some enemy slain the king in the north, who used to be his brother Rob? Had his bastard brother Jon Snow fallen from the wall? Had his mother died, or one of his sisters? And I thought it's interesting that Rob, Jon, and Catelyn will all die. Of course, we know Jon will come back, but Bran also mentions one of his sisters, and I'm thinking foreshadowing.
Definitely.
Yeah,
sisters.
I agree.
Yeah.
With Arya in
Quite
the snow, with clenching needle basically in her hands. Yeah.
Can't get that out of my head. I hate it.
I
But
know.
I just know when he writes those things, they're going to happen. Arya. I can see that happening though to Arya. I can see her fighting to the death.
Yeah, I can too. Ashley, I agree with that. And it's very possible there's so much foreshadowing for it. Even all the way back to the first book, Game of Thrones, with Syria Farrell, dead, very dead.
Interestingly enough, just to throw some more mythology in there is a Bran the Blessed in the same story of these same people where Baelor of the Evil Eye is mentioned. There's also a demigod sort of character named Bran the Blessed. I just found very, very interesting. And he was an architect and he was a smith. And the thing about the Celtic myth is that the Druids respected smiths and masons, so they educated and highly intelligent because they were building the world. So it made me think about exactly what you just said about the Bran the Builder giving the kind of being the architect and other people building. It's kind of like he's the visionary of the god. And the show they did called Bran a God.
Go ahead, Steph.
No, I was
No,
finished.
you can. If you got something to say on that, old man, you should probably go because.
No, I'm all right.
Okay, I was actually gonna slightly change the topic to something that could possibly affect the books later on, and that's Wyman Manderley's fleet in the scenario that goes down. So supposedly the North hasn't had ships for over 100 years since Brandon the Burner burned the ships over the grief of his father going across the Sunset Sea. And what I found interesting is that when Davos goes, he also notices the Iron Bank there, beyond the fact of these ships. So that also brings in, how did the Iron Bank get to Stannis? And does the Manderleys know where Stannis is in the Winds of Winter? Because I always found it weird that Tycho Nestorius knows where he is. Like, basically, he goes to the wall, then, like, how are you supposed to find them in the North? The North is massive, right? Outside of that, I also find it weird that the Umbers are especially made to work with the Manderleys on building the ships, and you're talking about some of the Umbers are also siding with Roose in this. So you think Roose would also hold that as a concern for raiding, like, basically up along his area, because it's like the Boltons are like northeast, where the Manderleys are just kind of like north, east, south, like they're closer to the bottom, closer to the Vale. So I just find it weird that Roose doesn't have this concern, which means the Umbers haven't told him of this yet. I just want to get everyone's take on where they think these ships might be coming to battle, basically.
Somebody else want to go first?
I actually do think they're going to come into it, because otherwise, in also Davis's chapter somewhere, Manderley kind of hides those ships for a reason. So I do think that his fleet is going to come into it, and also he tells Bran he wants to start up a coinage with Rob's face as king in the North. Manderley, I tend to think, has his own agenda. I don't know it's for the Starks or for rising up his own house. I tend to think he's still with the Starks because I love Manderley. But I do think he has a little bit of an agenda on his side here. And also, one point I picked up too was Manderley began by asking Winterfell to confirm the new custom officers he had appointed for White Harbour. The old ones had been holding back silver for King's Landing rather than paying it to the king in the North. And I'll just put in little brackets, Littlefinger loves his silver. So is he kind of figuring out that Littlefinger is involved in what's going on at White Harbour, and he's taking the money for King's Landing because he handles all the coinage, or he's master of coin. But yeah, I do think the ships are going to come in handy, and also in the show I tend to think they replaced Manderley's ships with Stannis's fleet. Remember how Stannis says, I want my ships later, and Jon promises he'll bring them back in one piece when he goes to Hardhome. So I do think the ships are going to play a part in the books, and it'll be Manderley ships and not Stannis's.
Yeah.
If I may, do you think that they'll be involved with the Euron in the books? Not the show, because I think it's going to be Dany in the show, but in the books, I think it's very possible that fleet may come out and do battle with Euron or some others at some point.
That's where my thoughts were at. But then when I started looking into it and how the Bank of Bravos was there, like their cogs and their galleys, instantly I thought about Arya and how she keeps mentioning throughout her chapters in Bravos that Bravos has the greatest naval fleet of the known world. The known world. So how can you, like, you're talking about the fork of the White Knife goes straight up, basically right to where probably like a couple thousand leagues from Winterfell itself. So if Stannis also sent, I forget what his face is, but he sent, oh, here it is, Lord Mallister to go talk to them in order to fight for his daughter Shireen, and if he dies, then all they would need to do is just go up the fork of the White Knife and attack. So I'm wondering if it's not just Euron that these fleets are going to come into importance, but there's more than one fleet.
Yeah. I think if I could jump in really quick.
Yeah, go ahead, hon.
I think that this fleet, I think that all the fleets will have the Ironborn. They'll have something to do with the Golden Company and Aegon. And they'll have something to do with not really Dany in the books. So it's Aegon. I think that the Billy Fleet, it's kind of a question. You know, we kind of know what Orion Waters might do with the Royal Fleet. He might just stop at Dragonstone because it seems that he might be more in the loop with, I think, with that whole Roland Storm and all of Stannis's people mining obsidian and all of that on Dragonstone, and Loras Tyrell ends up there. And I truly don't think he's very hurt. I think that they're all planning something. And hopefully they're going, that's what's going to happen with those guys, with the bastards. Will get them and they'll go north. They're not meaning to, or but they hopefully will end up there fighting with Jon. The Manderley fleet, yeah, might encounter Euron more than anything.
Yeah, I tend to think that the Clash of Kings, because George does this, it's set up there, but I think it's set up for a future event that's happening in way, like you can see it happening in, I think it's in Dance with Dragons that Davos sees that fleet. So I tend to think this is in the Winds of Winter, we're going to see the fulfillment of why he has those ships. And it's either to battle Euron, to join Dany, or maybe in the end, as Nymeria did, to set sail and save humanity, because you know how I think Westeros is going to end up. And they may need those ships to flee. So I think it's being set up for the Winds of Winter. And this is where George is so... he's such a genius. How does he keep track of everything that he's doing? He sets it up in a Clash of Kings, and he's going to fulfill it in the Winds of Winter when we finally get it. So I'm thinking, like, how does he remember all these things that he has to do? Give the guy kudos. He's a wonderful writer, but I just wish he'd write a little bit faster. But that's where I'm going with that. We'll see the fulfillment of the ships in the Winds of Winter, I think.
Marie bringing that up actually makes a lot of sense, because if the Manderleys are on the eastern side of Westeros, for them to go to the Reach, which is basically where Euron is right now, then to go down past like the Arbor and like to reach back into Old Town, basically Sam's right there, so they could do that, right? And then go further up, right, to the Iron Islands, claim that, and then head out to the Sunset Sea, right? Which makes sense. Like on where they need to go in order to attack people, that makes perfect sense. And then you're talking about also Dragonstone is right there along the way as well.
If I may, what if they go west of Westeros? Because where are they going to go if the White Walkers are, if it's a worldwide event? You know, Westeros is going to be gone, and probably if they make it across the Narrow Sea, how you make it to another continent, you know, unless it's ended in Westeros. And like you say, they have to flee, and that may be where the west of Westeros comes from. But they got to figure out where, and maybe that may be where Bran's green seeing abilities come in.
I like that. Well, I know that I mean, it's obvious Manderley's gonna have something kind of great He's just a great character. And I think he's setting up things. I think he's been setting things up for quite a while. So I just think that no matter what anybody's doing, after a while, they're all going to end up. Have to. I mean, some of them will stay and fight the Game of Thrones, but I think most people are going to be needed.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think we'll see the fulfillment of what's going to happen with these ships in the Winds of Winter. And it could be many things. It could be fighting Euron, joining Dany, or escaping. What's going to happen, what I think is going to happen to Westeros. Another thing I kind of came to realization in Bran 2 is the many lessons that Bran's learning. Like Brandon never asked to be prince, it was knighthood he was dreamed of. And then it's you are your brothers there. What I feel so is like Cassell and Lewin, Maester Lewin, are driving into him the thought of duty, honor, looking after the weak and the helpless, and his kind of like Stark honor kind of thing. And I'm thinking that's being driven into him. So I thought even if Bran does kind of enter a dark kind of way of life with Bloodraven, I always think that Bran is going to remember the lessons he learnt at the feet of Maester Lewin, his father, and Roderick Cassell, because it's driven in. You can see it so many times as I was reading the chapters, that he's always reminded, even in with the Reed's kids, when they first meet up and they say, you'll help look after our helpless, our weak, our sick, and that kind of stuff. So I don't think even if he enters a dark period, I think Bran will overcome it, because we really don't. I'm still unsure about Bloodraven, because if it is Brynden Rivers, then Brynden Rivers was a pretty ruthless guy. So I'm kind of 50-50 with Bloodraven. So if he's gone to the wrong place and Bloodraven's trying to use Bran, eventually the lessons that he learned at his father's knees and the others are going to come back to him, because it's just over and over and over again that I read in these chapters. The honor code, the Stark honor code.
Oh, yeah. And the Tully code.
Yes,
Family duty honor. Yeah, it's big. I mean, that kind of was the one thing that Catelyn was about. And then sort of there was a line, was it in A Clash of Kings, where she said, I've left my boys, I've left my girls. I'm with Rob, but, I'm not being a very good mother. What must Bran and Rickon think of me? I sort of see her realizing that she's not fulfilling her family duty honor. I think she thinks she's doing it by arresting Tyrion, and that in the back of her mind somewhere she knows, and that she needs to just go back and be a mother.
It seems to me that Bran is making the same mistake though as his mother, since he is leaving Rickon in the hands of someone who just tried to kill him as well. Though, like if it's family first, duty, and then honor, then you would assume that Bran would take Rickon wherever he goes, just to add that extra blanket of security. But he's not. He's abandoning that for his own glory, which I'd also like to bring up for a second. It's actually in the very first chapter where I found that Bran actually decides to go north. He says, the true world was calling, and he knew he must answer or die. So it's like right when that first chapter, he already knew that he was going to leave. He already knew everything. Like it's almost like when he was in his state of in a Game of Thrones, that he instantly knew as soon as he got out that some event was going to lead him beyond the wall to the true world, and he was going to find out everything, like no matter what happened. I found that interesting.
I do too. And it kind of ties in with what you said at the beginning about the Arabic word for Islam, about how you find your go to the Quran to find out how to problems. That's a big theme in this whole story, is making yourself the best you can be, finding your purpose, your journey. It all sets up in a Game of Thrones, and then they start finding their journeys in a Clash of Kings, a lot of them. So it's Bran's finding his, but I wonder if it's that, he kind of knows that he's going somewhere he shouldn't be going. I don't know. I really don't know what to think about Bloodraven either, Marie. It's just one of those things that it could be really good or really bad.
Yep. It's hard to say with Bloodraven, because you look at Brynden Rivers, and yes, he was a great guy for the realm, but he was sent to the wall for a reason. He's a kin killer, and that's a great sin in Westeros, but he did it.
He did it very, very ruthlessly.
That's kind of like the guest, right, with the rat cook, almost, in that he is stuck in a tree for hundreds of years, waiting on Bran, never being able to do anything, but not even half alive, but alive, but yet not alive. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I'd like to jump in and just... It's okay, Ashley, you can go.
No, go for it, Steph, please.
No. You can go.
No, really, I didn't have anything big to say, so go ahead. Thanks, babes.
Okay, so when it comes to the sack and like the burning of Winterfell, I'm pretty upset with Roger Carlsell on how he basically went for Ramsay and left Winterfell basically undefended. He left 500 men to defend hundreds of acres in a castle. And I'm just upset because when he came back, he also made it more weak because he allowed Ramsay into the dungeons as well as an imposter of Reek. So if anyone likes to insult him, by all means.
Well, Lady Hornwood warns is kind of like trying to warn them that Ramsay the bastard is gathering a group of men, and she even says he's acting like a true-born son. And they kind of disregard her, and I'm thinking, why the hell are you disregarding the Boltons? And it's not as if they don't know what the Boltons are. I mean, they're known in the old days for flaying men, and even though Roose Bolton lies low, because he says that to Ramsay, lies low, kind of flies underneath the radar, I pretty much well think the North knows what Roose is. He's called the Lord of Leeches, and I'm sure they probably knew about him before that, but I'm thinking, why would the Master of Arms leave Winterfell so totally exposed when you've got Ramsay building a force at the Dreadfort, which is close to Winterfell, and I have to admit, they're probably not taking any notice of Bran and Jojen's dreams about the dangers of Theon Greyjoy with the water flowing over. But I'm just thinking it's a stupid thing to do, to leave it unprotected.
Yeah.
Well, I got a question. If Jojen, he sees so much and everything, how come they didn't know about Theon coming? He had the dream, but nobody acted on it. He told them about the dream. Jojen's one that actually had the dream in the books, right, Steffi?
Yeah, it's Jojen that has the dream. It's just that he said it's the... and nobody quite knew what that meant, but he did say... Micken's one of them. He did list a few people that... some of the people who were... but I don't think anybody knew the Ironborn. nobody could quite figure out how the sea would get to Winterfell. So I don't think they ever put that quite together. Why Jojen wouldn't? I guess, you know, it's whatever. Yeah, jump in, please, Steph, because I think it's whatever they are given in their dreams.
Okay, this is from Bran, A Clash of Kings. He's I'll just read you the paragraph quickly. Mira thought so too. Later that night, when she and Jojen met Bran in his room to play a 3-sided game of tiles, but her brother shook his head. The things I see in green dreams cannot be changed. That made his sister angry. Why would the gods send a warning if we cannot heed it and change what's to come? So basically, whatever he sees can't change. So, like, even if they told someone and someone believed them, the events would have just ended up exactly the same. It's kind of like if Bran were to go back in the past and attempt to change something, I don't think it would change anything. I don't believe that. I feel like if Hoarder did have this thing happen to him, then it was meant to happen like that. Like, it's already written. The ink's already dry, right? There is no free will. There's already a God that has chosen it for you, kind of thing. But when it comes to them not noticing Reek as an imposter, this is foreshadowed also before Bran leaves, and Robb is in Bran's bedroom, and he lays down with him after the feast, and he says, every time I look at Roose, and he's just staring at me with his piercing blue eyes, and all I keep thinking about is how they have these skin cloaks in their basements. So that was also a foreshadowing to the event that Bran didn't even heed either, that he should have noticed during this process that this person was acting very strangely. That's it.
What about the direwolves and Bolton? You know, the direwolves always seem to have the right key, the right. They've got the number for everybody. It seems like the direwolves do. So you know, I mean,
Well,
go ahead, Marie.
I was just going to say they do because even from the beginning they hated the two Walders. They were always growling and attacking the two Walders. So Bran and first off, Rickon too hated the Walders, but later Rickon changed his mind, but Bran doesn't. So the direwolves were, to me, in a way, trying to warn them about the Boltons even then, and the Freys, what the Freys were going to do. They sensed it. But as I said, as the children grow older, they seem to lose track of their direwolves and don't follow them, which really irritates me. Especially like someone like Robb, who should have been listening to his direwolf. But I do think the direwolves were trying to warn Bran about the Freys. But I just still think, I'm still going to be hammering on this, that they did the wrong thing in not protecting Winterfell when Lady Hornwood was telling them about Ramsay. And they know what the Bolton reputation is. It's not a good one. I mean, even in the early days when Bolton wasn't thinking about betraying Robb, Robb was scared of Roose Bolton. He found him chilling. And Caitlin had second thoughts about him because of some of the things he was saying. So there was that thing of distrust. And then they just go and leave Winterfell unprotected. I think it's stupid. Sorry, but I do.
One of those times, I think, where they've forgotten, because Raymond Redbeard, the Boltons are descended from, he's the one who would reach and he would kill Stark princes. He was the one who would make the cloaks. And he would reach in and grab their entrails, out, and disgusting, the whole thing. And, so I don't understand why they would do that either, knowing that these are people who want to kill Starks or who want to take Winterfell. And they've taken Winterfell, twice before? A little weird.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. It's also gross. Like, if Maester Luwin is teaching them this history, the same guy also made pavilions out of these skin cloaks out of the slaves from White Harbor, like the Wolf's Den. Like, after he invaded it with I forget, it was one of the Brandon Starks, like great grandson or something like that. Yeah, Brandon Ice Eyes Starks. I believe that's who he raided the Wolf's Den with.
The best.
So Yeah, yeah, it could have been a bastard. Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to go through my Stark notes. But yeah, like you think if Bran was listening to this history, and then on top of that, getting this sense from Robb, and then having the Jojen dreams on top of that, like you think he would have put it together. You think he would have, at least since he was the prince in Winterfell, done something about it. He could have easily killed him, right? Jojen Reed spoke nothing of the burning of Winterfell. He talked about Theon coming to Winterfell and the seas coming over, right? It wasn't until later, when Reek is finally in there, that Jojen has this dream of Reek wearing the cloaks of, or skinning the two Miller boys. So,
Right.
Despite it not being changed, he could have killed him before Reek even got there. That's just my input on it. Just very angry.
But in the thing, he's killing. Yeah, he's seeing them slay the boys though, but he thinks it's Bran and Rickon. Bran.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He said, I see you being killed. Oh yeah, it's maybe that's why Roderick died. He left the Lord of Winterfell. There was a Stark at Winterfell, but he was a little boy and he wasn't very well protected. Something they forgot.
With that Jojen reading and Jojen seeing Bran and Rickon, and he says he sees their faces. So it's not the other boys that were taken in his place. He sees their faces, and Reek is skinning their faces. So I'm thinking, can Jojen get things wrong? I just find it hard to believe that someone is 100% right 100% of the time. I think somewhere along the line you do make a mistake somewhere, and I'm thinking, well, he actually tells Bran he saw their faces being skinned by this Reek. And going back to just what Steffi said too, Lady Hornwood says, I've heard things that I can scarce believe, even of a Bolton. The bastard looks at my hands hungrily. So she was warning them what Ramsay was up to, and they ignored him. But going back to Jojen again, I just find it odd that he sees Bran and Rickon's face being skinned, and I'm thinking, is that we're going to see in a future thing or something, or has he made? I tend to think he's made a mistake.
I think
I'll jump in real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you sure?
I think it's because the world thinks it's Rickon and Bran. You know, it's that the world has. Everyone believes that those two boys are dead. So is it possible that was the foreshadowing for that? The world would believe it. And I guess eventually Rickon will die according to the show, but in the books, I hope that, I'm still looking to see him riding Shaggy Dog or a unicorn or something.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nan. I think that it's people's Theon maybe's vision of Bran and Rickon being killed. Like they're not, but people might have that in their heads. So Jojen might be seeing that, or he's just being fed dreams by Bloodraven also. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's foreshadowing that something's going to happen like that later. I think it had to do with this.
Oops.
Agreed. I'd like to jump into something I noticed as well, and this is during one of Bran's dreams, and he says, this is after Jojen comes and tells him that, when falling asleep, that he finally opens up his third eye, right? So during this dream, the three-eyed crow starts, he makes him blind, and then he starts pecking at his forehead, and then he opens it up, and he says that the feeling felt like, what is it here? The pain was an axe splitting his head apart. But when the crow wrenched out its beak, all slimy with bits of bone and brain, Bran could see again. When I was thinking about Brendan Rivers and the wall and stuff like that, it was only until then that I actually noticed this. And it kind of sounds like the Mad Axe, right, at the Night's Watch, and him taking off his shoes and taking an axe, right? He said he was crazy and killed all of his brothers, which kind of mimics also what Vermeer did to Thistle and her biting off her tongue, right? So I'm wondering that maybe the Mad Axe or whoever was there was a Greenseer, and the person that picked out his third eye during the stream drove him crazy. It drove him to the point to murder his brothers. Whether that was a good thing because the Night's Watch was so corrupt at the time, or whether it was for another reason, who knows? But I do find it strange that also he takes off his shoes, right? And it's kind of like the others where they don't make footprints on the ground because they're so light. They kind of it's what George R. R. Martin says, that they kind of mimic that of ice, like their physiology. So I'm just wondering you guys' take on that.
I'm trying to figure out where to start.
Well,
To go, please.
I tend to think that sometimes Bloodraven comes across as cruel. Like I got here, dreamed of the weirwood. It was look at him with red eyes calling to him, and from its pale branches a three-eyed crow came flapping, picked at his face and crying out his name in a voice as sharp as swords. And that whole thing of picking at his brain and like it's bone and blood. And I'm thinking, this is not a really gentle guy. This is not a gentle creature, whoever Bloodraven is. If it's Brendan Rivers, he's pretty ruthless. But this is not someone who's gently trying to awaken someone's third eye so they can see the future and help him. This is some cruel. It's rather cruel. And like with a jackhammering and all that, it sounds very much like a migraine. And I was sick with a migraine once, and that was for 3 days. And it is really like a jammer head going off, some, like a thumping in your head, and it's like hammers in your head, really. And it's really painful. I mean, I was sick with a bucket by my side by my bed, but I won't go into too much information. But having that kind of reminded me of migraine. So I tend to think like there's just something about Bloodraven that doesn't sit right with me. And this is a little boy, and he's making this little boy sick, and he's doing it in a cruel way, like pecking at bone and brain to awaken his third eye. And sure, there might be a good reason for it, that the Westeros is in danger, but there's got to be a reason why Bloodraven and the Children of the Forest are on the wrong side of the wall, and they're not on the Isle of Faces. So I'm thinking, is Bloodraven using Bran, and he doesn't care what methods he uses? Because when you love someone, you don't want to hurt them, and Bloodraven's hurting Bran. So love shouldn't hurt. So I'm thinking, I tend to think he's using Bran.
Marie, if I may.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Nan, please.
I think that Bran would not have lived if that third eye hadn't been open. He would have stayed in a vegetative state. Like we had said before, basically he like a small death when he fell from that tower, And I just don't see how the boy could have survived that without some intervention, a magical intervention of some sort. It doesn't compute.
Yeah, but Bloodraven opens his eye in Game of Thrones when he says fly or die. But this is in A Clash of Kings, and he's really pecking at Bran's third eye, to me, in a rather cruel way. And did you want to say something, Ashley?
Something just came into my head of a spiritual teacher that I was listening to once talking about opening your third eye, and that it can be a really painful experience after you open it. So maybe it's resisting it. It is really quite, it's ruthless. So I don't know if he's doing it to help him, or if he's doing it to coming up to the tree.
I'd like to jump in on that. Okay, so at the beginning of the passage we're talking about, it says that That night, Bran prayed to his father's gods for a dreamless sleep. If the gods heard, they mocked his hopes, for the nightmare they sent was worse than any wolf's dream. Now, he dreams of a dreamless sleep. Now, when Jojen later on asks him, like, tell me about your dreams, he says, I don't have dreams. Maester Luwin gives me sleeping draughts, which is the same as Sweet Robin. So you wonder if Sweet Robin had that same effect through that, like, because Bran's usually sitting beside the werewood when these events are going on in the Godswood, that maybe if Sweet Robin was given this like BR to peck his third eye, would he stop shaking? Would he stop being nervous and all this other stuff? Where Bran already has that happen to him, that he's already calm and collective and all that stuff as well, on top of that.
Yeah, I just found that quote. Bran dreams of a crow again. The pain was axe splitting his head apart, but when the crow picked out its beak, all slimy with bits of bone and brain, Bran could see again. Help me, he cried. A golden man appeared in the sky above him and pulled him up. The things I do for love, he murmured, as he tossed him into the empty air. So as he's having this, he's also remembering some parts of Jaime.
Things I do for love just has such a bigger meaning, I think, too. Maybe that's Bloodraven saying the things I do for love to you. I don't know.
And again, this also mimics what happens with Sweet Robin as well, and him remembering Marillion and hearing him scream. Like, technically, Peter had Marillion killed for his love of Sansa. So
yep,
it kind of like all ties into each other. Like maybe in the future, if Sweet Robin or Bran gives Sweet Robin the same effect that BR gave him, then possibly Sweet Robin could be a more physical threat. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, because Jojen also tells Bran he'll never fly and says he will. I wonder. He says you'll never walk, you'll never fly. So I don't know, it's kind of mind-bending to me to what Bloodraven's up to. It seems to me like the Reeds really understand what they're doing, and they understand that there's a mission here that they need to do, that they need to complete. And maybe they're asking all these questions and trying to out or being sent dreams so that they can sure who it is that they're supposed to get. I don't know. I mean, I wonder if it's somehow get to Jon.
Yeah, because Jon, Bran, Children of the Forest, and BR are all connected. I just see that it's all connected. Yeah, through Bloodraven.
Yeah, Bloodraven's a Targaryen as well. So, yeah, there's a connection, a blood connection on both sides.
And the Blackwoods, too. So, yeah.
Just saying. Take care, Alicia Han. Thanks for dropping by.
I think the Blackwoods have a lot to do with this too. I really do.
Yeah.
I think the Melissa Blackwood and even the strife between the House Bracken and House Blackwood, you know, that's even in mythology. A mountain, two hills that they called after someone's mistress's teats, and I thought, oh my God, that's so odd. It's the same exact thing. That actually did happen. So this has to be something big with the hills. Yeah, I know. Talking about Missy's teats always opens a can of worms. you know, I mean, and that's where the tree is that's dead with all the ravens on it. So it's just interesting to me what is going on there.
I have a guess of what's going on there, and it's it kind of resembles that of the Bible, of the honeyed land. It's basically the promised land for the Israelites and stuff like that, and it's supposed to be a fruitful land. And House Bracken and House Blackwood have been fighting over it for centuries, forever, and it's on the list. And when they go back to when Jamie goes back to the Blackwoods and he talks to the Brackens, he's like, that's the land that we wanted the most. So clearly that land in particular, that fruitful land, right, especially in the Riverlands, which is devastated by war and famine and death and destruction all the time, why is this one piece of land so fruitful? There has to be an association with that land in particular.
Firewood on it. And then fruit. Interesting. Insight, you know, is causing problems. Maybe all this, I mean, I don't know how, you know, this is the knowledge, how they remember. So how can that be a problem? But there's always the dark side. I don't know.
Yeah, and also,
I
like,
wish I had more to say.
I know, I'm trying like to keep Blood Raven for Thursday with Aziz. But I wanted to know Steffi's opinion about this, because this is always kind of like got to me too, is the Reed children. To Winterfell we pledge the faith of Greywater, they said together. Hearth, harvest, we yield up to you, my lord. Our swords and spears and arrows are yours to command. Grant mercy to our weak, help to our helpless, and just to all, and we shall never fail you. Now this with these words. I swear it by earth and water, said the boy in green. I swear it by bronze and fire, said his sister. We swear it by ice and fire, they finished together. And to me, that's I think that's the ages: earth and water, the children of the forest; bronze and fire when they were invaded; and the new age, ice and fire, which is going to happen. Those words fascinate me. What do you think, Steph?
Ready for my rant a little bit?
Go ahead.
Okay, for earth and water, like when I kept reviewing this, I kept going back to some kind of crown or king related figure. For the first part, right, I like earth and water, I thought about the Last of the Giants, bringing up the honoring of the land and everything like that. And then you have Brandon the Burner, who was also, like, his father went across the land. Then I got into a tangent with the earth and water of, hold on, let me just check. I'll find it for a second. Okay, here we go. Okay, so when the pack happened, there were supposedly historical figures that went throughout actual history. The first one was the Green Queen, who ruled the Rainwood for a generation during King Durwald the First Darndarian, the Woodswish that rebelled against him, right, in Storm's End. So that's your first figure, like right at the bottom of Westeros. Then when you go up a little higher, you have the Green King of the God's Eye. Is one of the many legendary first men heroes of the Riverlands, whose tales date back to the Age of Heroes. He ruled the Great Lake region of the God's Eye. So then you move up a little further. Then you have the Green Men, which are, of course, involved in the pack itself, and keeping the God's Eye safe and protected. Now, these Green Men supposedly had what the Maesters believed as headdresses, but then when you see the Children of the Forest and them mimicking the physiology of animals in a way, they could have also had horns, which made me look at other figures who had horns. And then you come across the Horn Lord, which was the king beyond the wall, way before Bael the Bard, which is 1,000 to 2,000 years before Gendel and Gorn, which are the people that kind of dug the path underneath the wall. So it's kind of like this figure is slowly moving across Westeros to the top, beyond the wall, and trying to reset back. So that's one king. As for the Water King, I of course believe that it's the Gray King. I think with possibly maybe the Squishers or the Deep Ones being associated with that figure, since they are the ones that inhabited that land originally, and the First Men are said to have killed them all. As for the Bronze and Iron King, the Bronze King was instantly associated with House Royce of Runestone. They have a crown. And again, they face off against people that claim themselves to be the true kings, which was House Shet. And yeah, and their words are actually "we remember," which mimics that of the North saying "the North remembers" constantly. Now, when I think of the Iron side, also again go back to the Gray King and thinking of the Iron Islands, and how they're the reason why basically the Ironborn have any sort of wealth is due to the mining of iron there. Now, Rob's crown is also of these two regions. It's also bronze, and then it's also iron. So, which makes me seem like it was merged during this time while they were facing these certain kings, right? The water, and then the green kings and queens. And then you have By Ice and Fire, which is currently the story which we are witnessing right now, which I believe is probably the others, and then of John and Bran, and then of Fire, which would probably be Danny and John, and the merging of those both. The one problem I had with all of this was trying to find them merging into Earth and Water during the first part, and I couldn't find it. The closest thing I came was to the Lady of the Waves and the Storm King, right? Like I forget what he's called. And basically, when they mated in the Stormlands, it basically they created what's that? I'm sorry, I'm kind of blanking out right now.
But
yeah,
also, if I may, Steffi, if it's the storms, I don't know if you know, a lot of y'all know about some agriculture or horticulture or anything. But when the storms come and the lightning hits the fields, it sends nutrients into the ground that makes it fertile. It helps the ground, it replenishes the ground, and I believe it's nitrogen. But I'm sure someone in the chat can check that out. But when you do that, then you get that very fertile land that you're talking about. And it seems to me like it would be in that area, if for no other reason than for that. And it seems to me like George knows an awful lot about a lot of different things, doesn't he?
Sorry, what was the question again? I was just saying goodbye to TBAB.
We love the chat. We really do. You guys help make it all worthwhile.
We will tea. Just sec now. We will tea every Tuesdays. We'll be here, and Thursday we have Aziz Eldori coming here from Westeros History. So keep that in mind, hon, before you go. Love you, babe. See you later. Go ahead, Nim. Sorry.
Bye, guys. I forgot what I was saying earlier.
Oh, sorry.
Ashley, help me out.
I'll go. I want to just say how interesting it was. You were talking about that, Steffi, that from Greenwood to basically, is that what you were like going from the south to the north and all the different kings?
Yeah,
so
it was from
what
south to north. Yeah, that's what it kind of mimicked that by itself, like the movement of it.
It does. It's so cool because what I was looking at, you were looking at the kings, I was looking at the houses and their mottos. And what's really interesting is as you go from the south to the north, it's like, you know, we light the way. We what's there's another one that's like the old, the true, the brave, you know, things, houses with names like that, like we will take you up on this way. And then once you get to Royce, it's we remember and we light the way, things like that. You know, we're the sons of winter. All these houses have mottos that seem to, when you get to the north, seem to all come together. You know, like they're leading it up. Interesting. So it's cool that you tied the kings in there. I love that because it all comes back to really the one true king. You know,
Also, I got a thought about all of these the mottos. You know, their words, and these were at one time first men ruled by the areas ruled by first men, and I believe that a lot of these words for these houses come from that era, or at least it seems to me like it may be a reference to the first long night or a previous long night. We light the way, we remember. All of this seems to be something that someone who had been involved in the first long night would have had for their motto, their house words. And like you say, it's going further and further up you go. You get to Winterfell and it's coming. So it's like it's playing itself out the further north you get. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Marie, you can go.
Go ahead, Steffi.
Marie?
No, I wasn't saying anything, hun.
Okay.
No, I'm in the chat. But I can if you want. I've got something lined up here. It's from Bran's last chapter, and that Bran wakes from a wolf dream when Mira shakes him. One day when I come back, I won't know how to talk anymore. And I thought, was that foreshadowing? A few sentences later, take care, Bran. Remember who you are. Because he does spend a lot of time in his wolf. And then Bran tells him he saw Winterfell burning. What I found really interesting too was that when they're in the crypts of Winterfell, he noticed when the shadows moved, it looked as if the dead were rising as well. Lyanna, Brandon, Lord Rickard, Lord Edwill, his father, Lord William, and his brother Artos the Implacable, Lord Cregan, who had fought the Dragonite, and it goes on, but I'm thinking, I find that rather actually fascinating. I'm thinking, is this a kind of foreshadowing too, that even the kings of winter will rise if Night's King comes south of the wall? And these
It's
people in there,
possible.
yeah, I thought, wow, that kind of didn't hit me the first time I read it, but it did this time.
That's kind of what I think too. I mean, I've always thought that waking stone giants just, to me, really just means the kings of winter. And it also, the line of the lone wolf dies and the pack, but the pack survives. That's what that passage reminds me of, is all will still rise together.
And that also goes back to the iron swords. You know, I hate to repeat it, but you know, there's that iron again. And if the iron swords aren't there, and you know, like you said, the wood on the door, the iron wood, that's all related as well. That, and it makes you wonder just if that door comes off, and if those swords are taken, those kings of winter probably will come back to life.
Yeah. I mean, what's to keep their spirits in? And someone left the door open, didn't they? The last time they left, but I think when Bran and Mira and Jojen left, they left the door open.
I think they did.
That's true. They did, I think. When they left to go after the burning of Winterfell, I believe. And they were leaving. They didn't bother to shut the door, I don't think.
Yeah, and here too, they escaped the crypts with Hodor's help. We made enough noise to wake a dragon, Ocean said. If the gods are good, the others take the ones who did this work. So you're getting that kind of in the same chapter of all the dead rising, and then the others take the ones who did this work. And we made enough noise to wake a dragon. I found that rather fascinating.
Yeah.
That could be foreshadowing that the dragon is in Winterfell, or is hatched, or will hatch. Whatever.
And then
Especially if that volcano goes off you've been talking about, Marie.
Yeah.
All
Yes,
right.
I still believe in my volcano. I can't believe it's a dragon, because surely someone would have sensed it. And for a dragon to hatch now, it's too late. It takes years for them to grow, and I don't think Westeros has got years to go. And then they find Lewin dying, and he says again to Bran, "A good boy, your father's son. Bran, go now." And I thought that's kind of where I think Bran will go. I think he's going to head to a dark place, but he's going to remember his father's, as I said, he's going to remember his father's words. And then as he's leaving, he says, "The stone is strong," Bran told himself. "The roots of the trees go deep, and under the ground the kings of winter sit their thrones. So long as they remain, Winterfell remained. It was not dead, just broken like me," he thought. "I'm not dead either." And that goes back to a theory I think you had, Ashley, about the underground tunnels going all the way to the wall, I think you said.
Yeah, I think they do. I think that Mance takes that way down with the Spearwives, and I think it's been there for quite a while. And then we found that there were some at Molestown too, that the wildlings were living in towards the end of Dance with Dragons. So there are a lot of tunnels.
Yeah, and also like with the Aryan chapter, she finds lots of tunnels everywhere there too.
I got a question. Yeah. If they left the door open, could that possibly be the door that in the books that Hodor has to hold?
Oh, wow.
I was thinking about sorry.
Go ahead. Sometimes it's just the little things. Go ahead, Steffi.
I was actually in line with like every single one of you. Like I was just like feeding off every single one of your parts. It's just like Ashley mentioned that the Stone Kings mimic that of Melisandre waking dragons from stone. And then on top of that, the door, I instantly thought of Hodor holding the door. But the one thing that gets me with there being a dragon in Winterfell. Now, Marie obviously believes that there is volcanic activity in Winterfell of some sort. Maybe it's not on the scales of the 14 Flames like it was in Valyria, but for me, I've always wondered why Bran named his direwolf Summer. And for me, imagine being born in a time during winter and having a dragon, and then waking up to cold and being like, "You're winter," or something like that to your animal. It's kind of like that similarity just like really gets to me. Like, why would you name your pet Summer? Like, does that mean that someone else might have named their pet Winter? Like, it's just, I feel like there is going to be a dragon like that. like a winter dragon, like whether he'll breathe fire or not. I don't know, but it seems like George R. R. Martin purposely put that in there at the end of Game of Thrones to give you that hint that he named summer and then winter is coming. I don't know, just
Yeah, but you know they all named they all named their direwolves very appropriate names. Sansa with Lady, Nymeria with Arya, that fits her very well. Ghost for John because he did die and essentially, and then Rickon with Shaggy Dog. He turned out to be a Shaggy Dog story in the show, and he probably will in the books. And then you have Bran with Summer, and that could just be foreshadowing that Bran will bring the summer.
Yeah, I sort of took it to mean that summer would be that he would make it to spring, summer.
I think
I don't know.
I kind of look at the titles of the books too. It's like the last one's A Dream of Spring, and you kind of start dreaming like when we're all. I don't know what a really harsh winter is, like you all do there, but when you get into the deep snows and you're sick of it after months and months of it, don't you start dreaming of spring? Oh, come on, spring, come on, summer. I'm sick of this cold. I'm sick of this winter. I tend to think that's what A Dream of Spring is. But in the flashbacks that Brown downloads from Be It Blood Raven, I did notice that there is one scene which I paused, and it's the sun rising. It's the sunrise. But he doesn't look like he's at Winterfell, and I can't place where this is, and I tend to think it's the land of always winter because it's very snowy and barren. But to see the sunrise, and Bran sees it in his vision, does that mean Bran survives to see the dawn?
I think that even if he dies, he'll see it and then die. You know, because he has to bring it. I mean, he's the winged wolf, and I think that that's his role. He has to meet, you know, Jaime has to make that right, but he also has to, you know, I mean, how it goes in Ragnarok is that Tyr with the missing arm comes to bind the winged wolf, and he dies after doing so. But Bran's already bound, you know, he's the winged wolf, but he's bound right now in the tree. So maybe that means Jaime has to come and bring him out of the tree, or bring him into where he's able to, you know, do a little more. I don't know. But it's significant that they call him the winged wolf in the book, and that's exactly what happens to the winged wolf. So with the way George flips things around, what happens in Ragnarok is Tyr binds and then takes 9 steps and dies because he's been bitten. This is after he bites his hand off. So maybe Bran will see it for minutes and then die. I don't know. Question, because he sees the sunrise and the sunset constantly. That's his chapters start that way. The sun was setting, the moon was a crescent, the moon was full, the stars were wheeling. That's how his start.
I'll jump in on that. For me, the Weirwood Network is it's kind of like if you were to die, your second life would be within the tree. So even if he did die before this dawn, this supposed dawn, he'd still see it through the tree. Because he would be able to go to wherever time he wants through this network of trees. He wouldn't have to particularly see it with his eyes.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
I love that. That's so true.
And then this
That's
also
just
brings
like
up John's chapter where I think I mentioned this last stream as well, where he sees the yellow eyes in the crypts of Winterfell and they look sad. And we were debating on whether or not that was Nymeria or Summer, right? Depending on the coloring of, like, with the intake of the obsidian candles and stuff. But if it is Summer, then technically, if he's sad, that means Bran would be dead,
Right.
right?
I got a question. I got a question. If his eyes are yellow, could that not be the eyes of a dragon that John sees?
I was thinking that as well.
Also,
Oh,
Danny sees a
yeah.
dragon with molten yellow eyes. I'm sure she does. The dragon.
Dragons and children of the forest have yellow eyes. So it could be a
That could
dragon.
be opening that third eye too. John opening that third eye as well.
Danny
Yeah,
also
it
sees
seems.
this too. Sorry.
Yeah. Yep. Things mean that these are the people who are going to fight for the dawn. All these people who are having these types of things, or they're red, they're white, they're blue, you know, they have some kind of association with things like that. They have these dreams. I think they're going to end up fighting.
It's building up to that. I think too that Bran's going to be pivotal, as I think I said in a previous live stream. It may not be Danny. It may not be. We're thinking of Danny killing the Night King or John the warrior killing the Night King. Maybe it's the little crippled boy who kills the Night King. Because there's that scene. I'm not going into the show here, but there's that scene where Bran is playing with the arrow, and he keeps missing the mark, and then he has a dream. So to me, Dan and Dave give two hints that something is special, and to have that dream again where John says, what was it? What were the words? Keep your back straight or something, or don't think too hard, Bran. So that, to me, that's going to come into play. Where what does he have an arrow that he shoots with? What's that stuff? Obsidian into the Night King. Because I wonder if you could kill the Night King, then you killed a lot of them. Do they all, like dominoes? Do they all fall? Yeah. So I just think Bran's pivotal.
I mean, with him raising his hands like that, I know I'm talking about the show too, but you know, that's one of those things, like the Lady of Avalon, the Lady of the Lake. That's how she parts the mists. That's how a lot of things or dimensions are taken down, you know. So it could be that that's how they all just are taken out if you get the head. If they are a collective consciousness, if they are all one mind, one hive mind.
The last thing that I have here that we haven't talked about was Jojen's basically when they get out of the crypts of Winterfell and they go to the Godswood to see Maester Luwin. They notice that only the outer trees of the Godswood have been burned, that nothing in the Godswood itself has been burned. Jojen says, there's power in the living wood. Almost, Bran was thinking it to himself too. Like he wasn't saying it out loud like, oh, that's weird. Like, why wouldn't the trees burn? Right? And Jojen says, a power strong as fire. So the Godswood has a power as strong as fire. So it's almost like when you Ashley were talking about the weirwood tree being encased in ice, it kind of brings up the fact of obsidian and it being frozen fire. So you wonder if the weirwood trees have the same properties of that of a obsidian candle. It's just one is material and the other is more natural. If you get what I'm saying.
I have a point on that.
Cool.
If the werewoods, in Bran's vision, he sees someone taking off 3 werewood arrows, and if it was during that time of the pact of ice and fire when the bastard brother of Kragan was going to go and kill him, it could have been that time. Kill the dragons for them. Well, if the werewoods would kill dragons, do they also kill White Walkers? No,
that's a good question.
Yeah, do they have effect on them?
See, I kind of wonder if it's like, dragons and White Walkers. Man, but it I don't know if they'll. It doesn't seem that way, but it just seems like it should be that way. But yes, maybe that's a dragon who can breathe ice. It's the trees, I mean, this weirwood encased in ice is because Bloodraven burned plague. He burned a lot of bodies in King's Landing, and a lot of people thought that was really an intense thing to do. And wildfire. So coming from an encased ice tree, it seems like it might be Bran, or because someone seemed to warn Jon and Ghost both that to go and find that cache of obsidian, and Ghost wouldn't go in the Ring of Stones. It was all kind of keeping Jon and Ghost away from the others. So maybe I don't know if it's bad or good, that flash of green. It reminds me of the wildfire, but it also reminds me of Greenseers.
Also on the burning, of the trees around the godwood. I don't imagine y'all can do this over there in where you're from, Ashley, but around here we have what we call a prescribed burn. And it seems like after you do a prescribed, that it really makes the greenery, when it comes back, it really helps the land and makes everything green. So even if the woods and trees and all around the godswood burn, it's likely that they will come right on back. It may take them thousands of years to get to where they were, but I think all is lost in that. If there is that volcanic eruption, that goes along with that too.
I just have to quickly, this quote is really close to the quotes about King's Blood that Jojen says to Bran about the godswood being in living wood, a power strong as fire. It sounds just like there's power in King's Blood. And, I know that the ancient people and trees together. Humans came out of trees, some people. So I wonder if, there's something to do with what kind of, I don't know, like what kind of wood, like if your skin is whiter, if your skin is darker, or if your eyes are darker, if your eyes are red. There's characteristics of people who are from, the Ghost of Highheart and Ghost and Bloodraven and who was the other one that was like that? There was somebody back in line that was an albino that I'm blanking on. But then, then you've got other people that have kind of darker skin and are Makoro. I wonder if there's something about king's blood and wood thing to do, if you can be protected by maybe the ironwood or the that protects. It's
That's a
holding in
good
the
thought.
king's winter. That tree, that black bark tree, with the blue leaves, is in the godswood. Like I was talking about last time, how it sort of reminds me of Eden with the tree of knowledge and the tree of good and evil and the tree of life. It's like that in the Winterfell godswood, where there's the tree of life, the weirwood, and the tree of knowledge, the black tree that gives shade of the evening. Seems almost like the two pillars, the white pillar and the black pillar.
Or the white door and the black door at Bravos.
Right. And, I found also Steffi, when you were talking about the kings, I was thinking about this, and there's the black door, there's a bronze door, green door. I started looking for doors and found quite a few.
And a red door.
It made me wonder about the red door, because I wonder if that's something else, like the black door, black gate. I mean, and the bronze gate. If the red door is something, maybe it's a red gate.
And Hodor.
And Hodor. Yeah, no eye color this time. We won't go crazy about eye color.
Marie, you got something to add?
Oh, sorry, I was just getting caught up in the chat. Can you hear me? Am I still on mute? I was just getting caught up in the chat.
Yeah.
They're talking about how Bloodraven got the dead and burnt them all in the dragon pit, and that kind of reminded me of I forget the name of the village that had the plague, and they decided that they would keep away from other people. They kind of like people would bring them food outside their gates, and for about a year or something, they stayed totally isolated from the world. Yeah, I think Geraldine Brooks wrote about it in a book called A Year of Wonders. I think it's a really interesting book.
But wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what. Yeah, that's what they did back then, and a lot of villagers died, but it stopped it from spreading to all the other things. So, to me, it was a sanitary decision by Bloodraven to burn all the dead in that dragon pit, because it basically stopped the disease from spreading. And I tend to think that's what Danny should have done when is it Marine, when they all come and they've got some sort of the pale grey mare or whatever it's called. She should have taken the dead then and not mixed with them, because she did a terrible mistake there. So yeah, I agree with Milt there. And yes, Andrew, I am a Catholic, and yes, I think the Catholics are against cremation. But when you're in the city now, like I live in the country, but when you're in the city, you get cremated now whether you like it or not, because they're running out of space. So
it's true.
Yeah, it's true. You get cremated whether you like it or not. So the Pope will have to change his mind on that one.
Interesting. I'm looking here. There's trees in the Riverlands at the Dairy Castle Godswood also. And it says that it contains bare trees with black branches reaching to the sky. There's the one in Deepwood Mott is quite a bit like that too. And the one in the Vale is too. It's just growing weirwood. But it has the throne. So.
But don't they even have a Godswood in King's Landing though?
And yes, the But I don't think it's a weirwoods, is it?
I don't know, Steffi. Chat, help us out.
Hold on. So what was the question? Because I was into the chat, like hardcore. AU is flipping hilarious.
I'm not looking at it right now. They are funny. They distract me. Well, here's the description of the Godswood of Winterfell. It's really cool. It's dark. It's a dark primal place of 3 acres of old forest untouched for 10,000 years. Primarily consists of sentinels, oaks, and ironwoods, but also has ash, chestnut, elms, hawthorn, and soldier pines. In the center is a dark, small, cold pool with an ancient weirwood heart tree. White as bone, dark red leaves, and a long and melancholy face carved in the bark. Its deep-cut eyes red with dried sap. 1,000 years of humus covers the earth. Across the Godswood, below the windows of Winterfell's guest house, 3 small ponds are fed by an underground hot spring. And they always talk, at least Sansa and Catelyn always talk about how dark the Godswood is. Reminds me of, like, you know, the beginning of the world.
Yeah, but Sansa and Catelyn are more like each other. And, you know, I think Sansa's more of a worshiper of the Seven instead of the old gods.
Yeah, I think they feel much more comfortable at Riverrun than they do at Winterfell. I wonder if these ponds have something to do with it too, because they're always there.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Red Keep.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marie.
No, I was just going to go totally away from what we're talking about and into chat. Milt's bringing up about Bloodraven and Tywin. There is a moral code that you should not cross, and Tywin and Bloodraven cross it. Tywin in a big way with the Rains in Castamere and the Tarbecks. To me, nothing can excuse killing entire families. It's what we would term crimes against humanity, and if it happened here, he'd be up on war crimes thing. With Brynden Rivers, he'll do anything to protect the realm, but in Dunk and Egg, don't come across someone who's hanging just because he said something negative about Bloodraven. And I'm thinking you can't kill a person because they've said something that you don't agree with. So there is a moral code that you should not cross, and both of them, especially Tywin, teeters right over the edge, and he's in the land of immorality to me. And also the Red Wedding, guest rights. Guest rights is important. When Tywin ordered the killing at the Red Wedding, he opened the doors that no one is safe to go to anything, because no rights is going to be respected anywhere. So when he did that, he's left the whole land unprotected. And anybody who goes to anything can be killed because Tywin ordered it first. So there is a moral line that should not be crossed. So I'm getting off my high chair now.
Okay, I'd like to jump in on that because that'd be fighting words. But you can't compare Brynden Rivers to Tywin at all. Tywin didn't have green sight. He didn't have any sort of abilities to tell the future with. He had no influence on the past at all. He couldn't work into animals. You have no idea what these people were saying behind Darien, Ares. Like, no one's back. Aegon, you don't know who these people were going to go kill. You're talking about they set up a wedding for the Butterwells and the Ambroses or whatever to basically start the second rebellion for these people. And because Brynden Rivers had a spy amongst their midst, like, that was it. Like, he squashed that thing. Is that wrong? No. Tywin did it for his own greed and own selfish ego, for his family's name. Like, he didn't do it to honor his family. Like, when you compare Tywin to Brynden Rivers, Tywin sent a lady that had sex with his dad naked down a street for having a few jewels. Like, you You just can't compare the two. I'm sorry.
And then
Tywin's
Cersei
sick.
wound up being paraded naked down the streets as well.
Exactly.
But also, didn't Brendan Rivers kill his nephews? And weren't they under? I thought they came over on a flag of truce or something. They wanted to come over, and didn't he kill his nephews?
Yeah,
And
he's a kinson.
Yeah, they were.
That's kin killing. And Aegon was against Brendan Rivers and Bloodraven. I know you can't compare him. To me, the worst person is Tywin, because Brendan Rivers always had a reason, and his has always been protect the realm, whereas Tywin was to protect his legacy, and that's a big difference. Brendan was doing it on behalf of the realm, because I think he became a king killer to protect the realm and to save them from always having these black fire rebellions. But Tywin, I cannot see where anyone can like Tywin. I just can't. Sorry, people. I can't stand Tywin. To me, he's a crimes against humanity kind of guy, totally immoral, and he'll kill anyone just to place his family first. And no, I can't deal with Tywin. Can't do Tywin. I will not stick up for Tywin.
President right now. Say something behind his back, and he.
I understand where you're coming from. Where I think it's Brendan River kills Aenys on a truce of the Great Council to name like another heir king, which ended up to be Aegon. Now, when he killed Aenys, you have no idea. You're talking about 4 rebellions went on. Who's to say there wasn't going to be a 5th? Like, just because of his actions. He was done. He's like, you've destroyed my reputation with all these silly, stupid rebellions because you got a dang sword. Right? Like, that's the way I look at it. like, of course, I would squash it too. Just saying.
That's
like,
basically
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see Brendan Rivers' point of view, because he was probably getting older and he was tired of the Black Fire rebellions, and he could see it continuing on. And as we all know, he may have had greensight, and he may have actually seen the future where it's going to continue on. The biggest mistake made was in legitimizing the bastards. It's kind of started all this thing, and also the Bittersteel and that kind of thing with Bittersteel. I can understand Brendan Rivers more, even though he did the wrong thing. He did it for a reason, and it was protect the realm. When it comes to Tywin, it's all about protecting himself, his family, and his legacy. It's got nothing to do with protecting the realm. If anything, he did the realm great harm in breaking guess right, because no one is safe. If I was in Westeros and anyone invited me to any big event, I'd plead sickness because he took that away. He took that safety away. No one's safe when you go to a... And it was Tywin. It wasn't the Freys. Walder Frey's too stupid to come up with anything like this. It's Tywin who wrote to them. Letters were going back and forth. Tywin wrote to them, and Roose was probably involved too, and Walder Frey. But Tywin kind of put the red seal of approval on it. So, yeah, it was Tywin. So I can see Steffie's point of view. I can understand that he wanted the Blackfire rebellions all to stop, save the realm. But Tywin and Bloodraven shouldn't be put together because they're totally different reasons for doing things.
You know, I find it interesting while you guys are talking, I keep hearing the realm. That's what Varys always says. That's what Littlefinger says, you know? So it makes me, Bloodraven was the first master of whisperers. And so it's kind of like, is he doing it for the realm, or is he doing it to, you know, chaos?
And that's where we don't. Sorry, and that's where we don't. I can see where you're coming from too, Ashley. I can, because everything is said, like to say the realm, like in the books, Varys is a much grayer character because you get these little birds, and I doubt these little birds grow to manhood, or if they're female, they grow up to be grown women. I think Susan, they can't get fit through those walls, they're dead because they've got too much tales to tell. And Varys is all about safeguarding himself, so he's got his. It's implied in the books, but I get the feeling that he kills his little birds. And that excuse is used over and over again for the realm. And it's used in government even today. It's for the safety of the land. We have to watch this person and listen to this phone call and watch this dude and ban this group. And when you start doing that, what's safe? No one's safe. You're actually making a much more unsafe world by trying to make it safe. So I can understand that, but when it comes to Blood Raven, he did it for the realm, but it was also what he did was also wrong, and he was sent to the wall for a reason, and that reason was because he did the wrong thing. You can't take back a crime that was done. You can't undo a crime, and he did a crime. But Tywin's is greater, of course. Yeah, Tywin's is greater.
It is.
But saying it's always for the realm doesn't excuse a wrong or a crime.
Okay, I'd like to jump in on
No, it
that.
doesn't.
Okay, Brendan River had the Raven Teeth. The Raven Teeth went through every single Blackfriar rebellion with him. You're talking about these men were so loyal to Bloodraven that they went to the wall with him. They knew that he was in the right, and they were like, screw it. If you're wrong, I'm wrong for doing that with you. And they went with him. What is it? Aegon didn't send them to the wall because they thought he was just not, they were just not associated. No, his men came with him and was like, yo, I'm standing behind you on that. So
agree.
How wrong can he be if his own men are like, screw it? Like, when Jano Slynt went to the wall, did the Gold Cloaks follow? No, of course not. Right. You're talking about there was no loyalty or honor in these groups of people. True. There was back then. So it's just a different, like, Brynden Rivers for me, like, the actions he did could be easily perceived as wrong. Easily. Like, killing Aenys, like, as soon as he comes over was wrong. He could have killed him after he tried to make a choice or had some sort of spy with him. Or he could have warged a little bird and just saw what he was doing. But to kill him that moment, like, he could have done anything to avoid that, right? Unless he was being set up to do that. Now, on top of that, you have to also consider that in the Duncan Egg novels, Shiera Caesar was also associated with helping Brynden Rivers through these things. Mm-hmm. Aegon, like Egg literally says, no, that's his girl. Like, she helps him out with this stuff. So to me, like, if you're gonna throw one person under the bus, you might as throw everyone under the bus. Because, like, also I mentioned this in the chat as well. When Varys goes to kill Daenerys, right, he sends that person with the poisoned wine casket. Now, was that because Varys wanted to, or was that because the king wanted to? You're talking about there was deathbed wishes that were made. Was this one of those deathbed wishes? There's many factors to consider. Like, like, it's exactly like when Ned was trying to tell Robert that his kids were a bastard. He wrote it on a little piece of paper and was like, "Nah, I'm not going to ruin your last moments on Earth," right? So you have to look at it at these other angles where there are closed doors. And he could be completely in the right, and you would not know it until you were to go into that werewood tree and look at it properly. That's just all I'm saying.
I think I kind of agree with Steffi on that. I mean, you know, but there is the saying that what is the life of one childbirth? So, you know, you've got that.
He's like, he killed his own kin, like his nephews. I can understand where Steffie's coming from, but he did commit a crime and he has to pay the price. I mean, you can't say, it'd be like saying Prince Charles can murder someone, but you can never imprison him because he's Prince Charles. Yeah, you can. And it's even in my own church, like the priests committing these crimes, go and get them. Even if you have to invade the Vatican, go and arrest them because they broke the law, they did a crime and they should pay for it. And Brynden Rivers pays for it. Does he have a following and loyal following? Of course he does, because he's Brynden Rivers, a hand of the king, and they do follow him, and that's great. But he committed a crime. He had to pay the price for it. And Aegon sends him to the wall. Aegon didn't put him to death. I don't believe that Brynden Rivers, after serving the realm for so long, deserved death, but he did deserve to pay for his crime. Whereas Tywin basically never did. He paid for it in a different way, and that his son eventually killed him. But I don't put them together because they're two separate things. What Brynden Rivers does, even if it's the wrong move, he did it to try and save the realm. Tywin was only out for himself. Tywin Lannister was always out for himself. So I kind of disassociate the two of them together. But did Brynden Rivers have to pay for doing that? Yeah, I think so. It's great that his men went with him and he had a great loyal following. But yeah, he did a crime. He killed his nephews and he should have paid for it. So I'm sticking by it. I love you, Steffi. And I love it when you get passionate about something, you really go for it. But I'm hard-headed and stubborn, and so I'm going to stick with my way too. So we'll agree to disagree, my wonderful friend. Love you.
You both, you're so darling. You know, it's
Well,
impressive.
lady, go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, I was just saying, Bloodraven's impressive. He's an impressive figure.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting more in depth in that come Thursday when we have Aziz here. Ladies, I guess it's been over 2 hours, so I reckon we ought to close it down. Give them your goodbyes, ladies. Ashley, Marie, and Steffi, and then I'll go.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. It was another wonderful conversation. Thank you, Steffi. You really did great research, and it was really fun to talk about this. So thanks. Come and see me at the Iron Underneath, or so the time I'm here. And I like it here, so I'm staying. Thanks, chat. Love you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Steffi. I love Steffi. We always have these little debates. We did before, and that's what made me ask Steffi to, well, did make me put Steffi in mind for asking her to come on. And Ashley, if you weren't going to come back, would staple you to your chair to make sure you come back. Love you all. Thank you for coming. It's been a wonderful night. I've really enjoyed the last few minutes. I actually do love debating things. So thanks, Steffi. Thanks, everyone in the chat room. Thanks for coming, and God bless you all, and take care. Oh, and please remember, Thursday it's Aziz Eldori. I hope I'm not murdering your name, Aziz. On Thursday, discussing Blood Raven. So that should be really volatile. See you all then. Hope you all come. Thank you very much. God bless.
Okay, Bran, A Clash of Kings. It was so much fun to discuss with Ashley Marie and Old Nan. I can't wait to Brynden Rivers with Aziz. Like, this is gonna be insane because I'm clearly amped up for this. So thanks to the chat for like coming in and just like giving us your input. It was great going back and forth with you guys in the chat. And yeah, cheers to everybody.
I want to thank the chat. I'm not smart enough to go back and forth and see what everybody's saying, but Marie keep me up and Steffi keep me up once in a while what's going on. You guys are wonderful. Come back and see us. We're here every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. The Golden Girls of Westeros. Like we said, we have Aziz Aldori on Thursday discussing Blood Raven. Please come out and join us. And y'all have a good night. God bless.